The final, perfect note of her wedding procession was supposed to be her walk down the aisle, not the first chord of a song she hadn't heard in 10 years. The CEO bride froze, halfway to her future, because the man playing it was the one she thought she'd left in her past. He is Alex, a single father who gave up his music career a decade ago. She is Alina, a tech CEO who built an empire from nothing. And the melody now filling her wedding was their song, a secret promise from a life she erased. But why would he be here now, playing the one thing that could unravel everything in front of everyone she knows? The answer lies in a single, desperate choice he made for her 10 years ago. 10 years ago, they were just Alex and Alina, two music students sharing a cramped apartment and a single dream. He was a prodigy, destined for concert halls. She was a brilliant songwriter, his perfect collaborator. Their song, the one now echoing through the wedding hall, was written in that apartment. It was called The Quiet Promise, a private vow set to music. The night they finished it, he proposed, not with a ring but with a plan, a year in Vienna, a life built on their art. She said yes. And then 3 months later, she vanished. No note, no call. Her side of the closet was just empty. Alex's world didn't just break, it went silent. He played their song once, alone in the dark, and then never touched a piano again. The dream was a shared instrument, and without her, he couldn't make a sound. He sold his piano to pay rent. He took a job loading trucks. The music died, and in its place, a different life grew. A quiet, responsible life. A father's life. His daughter, Chloe, is 8 years old. Her mother, a brief and gentle relationship that ended amicably, lives across the country. Chloe is his entire world. She knows her dad used to play, but she's never heard him, not once. He drives for a catering company now. The black suit is his uniform. Tonight's gig was just another job. A high-end wedding at the Grand Avalon Hotel. Set up the chairs, check the champagne, stay invisible. He wasn't even supposed to be near the piano. But then he saw the order of events. The procession song was a generic piece by a famous composer, something expensive and soulless. And he saw her name on the planner, the bride, Alina Vance, not the Alina he knew. This was Alina Vance, founder and CEO of Vault Systems, a cybersecurity titan, worth an estimated $200 million, engaged to Michael Thorne, a venture capitalist from old money. The wedding was the social event of the season. He told himself he would just do his job and leave. He had Chloe to pick up from her friend's house at 9. But then he walked past the grand piano, a gleaming Steinway, and the sheet music was open to that generic procession piece. And something in him, something dead for a decade, cracked open. It wasn't a plan. It was a compulsion, a ghost moving his hands. He sat down. He closed his eyes, and his fingers found the first haunting chords of The Quiet Promise. He played for the ghost in his memory. He did not play for the 300 stunned guests. He did not play for the groom, whose smile had turned to rigid confusion. He played for the girl in the old apartment who believed in their quiet promise. And now, in the present, that girl is a woman in a $50,000 dress, frozen in the aisle. Every eye in the room is on her. The cameras, meant to capture her joyful walk, are broadcasting her paralysis live to a private feed for absent relatives. Her mind is a collision of two timelines. The past, Alex's hands on the keys, her head on his shoulder, the smell of rain and cheap coffee. The present, the weight of her diamond necklace, the scent of 10,000 white roses, the expectant face of Michael, her brilliant, strategic, perfectly suitable husband. Michael doesn't know this song. He doesn't know this part of her. The Alina Vance he met had no past before business school. She had constructed herself, brick by brick, into an impenetrable fortress. This melody is a seismic charge against her own foundations. Her chief of staff, David, is whispering frantically into his headset from the side. "Who is that? Get him off, now." But the hired security guards are hesitating. You don't just tackle a man playing a piano at a wedding. It breaks the spell of civility, and the spell is already broken. Alina takes a step, not toward the altar, but toward the piano. A gasp ripples through the crowd. Alex hears it. He feels the shift in the room's energy. He finishes the phrase and lets the last note hang, decaying into a silence so thick you could drown in it. He opens his eyes. He looks directly at her. There are 1,000 things in that look: grief, anger, a question so old it has grown roots. For Alina, it is a mirror held up to a self she abandoned. She stops 10 feet from him. The entire wedding is a diorama of shock. "Alex," she says. The name is a whisper, but the microphone pinned to her dress picks it up. It blooms through the speakers, a public secret. "Why?" He doesn't smile. His voice is low, calm, meant only for her, but the room is so quiet it carries. "You once asked me to promise I'd play this for you on the most important day of your life. You just never said it would be your wedding to someone else." The revelation is a knife. It was a private joke, a lover's hyperbole. She had forgotten. He had not. Michael is now walking down the aisle, his face a mask of controlled fury. "Alina, what is this?" But Alina is not looking at Michael. She is staring at the sheet music on the piano stand. It's still the bland, purchased piece. Alex played their song from memory, from a scar. And next to the sheet music, almost hidden, is a small, faded photograph from that old apartment. The two of them, young and blurry, laughing on a fire escape. A photograph she is certain she destroyed. Her breath catches. This isn't just a nostalgic disruption. This is an accusation. He brought evidence. "Where did you get that?" she breathes. Alex doesn't answer. He just looks at the man in the impeccably tailored tuxedo now standing protectively beside her. The man who is about to become her husband. And Alex says, loud enough for the front rows to hear, "Ask him why his company, Thorn Capital, did a deep background check on you 10 years ago, and who he paid to have it done." The cliffhanger isn't the stopped wedding. It's the sentence that hangs in the air, turning a romantic mystery into a corporate conspiracy. Michael Thorne's face goes pale, not the flush of embarrassment but the gray wash of fear. He didn't just marry her future, he buried her past, and the man at the piano just dug it up. For 3 seconds there is only the hum of the air conditioning and the sound of 300 people not breathing. Then the room erupts, not in noise but in a frantic, whispered chaos. Cameras flash. Michael Thorne finds his voice, but it's all wrong. It's the slick, damaged tone of a man whose script has been shredded. "This is absurd. Security, remove this drunken caterer immediately." But Alina's hand shoots out, grabbing Michael's wrist. Her grip is vice-tight. Her eyes never leave Alex. "Is it true?" Michael tries to pull away to regain the upper hand of outrage. "Alina, darling, this is your wedding. This person is clearly unstable. He's inventing a fantasy." Alex doesn't move from the piano bench. He reaches into the inner pocket of his suit jacket, moving slowly, deliberately. He pulls out a single sheet of paper folded in quarters. It's old, the creases worn soft. He holds it up. It's not a love letter. It's the first page of a report. At the top, a logo, Sentinel Risk Management. At the bottom, a date, October 12th, 10 years ago. Subject, Alina Marie Rossi. That was her name before she changed it, before she became Alina Vance. Alina's blood drains from her face. She knows that name. She buried that name. Michael knows it too. His bluster evaporates, replaced by a cold, calculating stare. "Where did you get that?" Alex's answer is for her alone. "It was in the box with the rest of my things." "The box you never came back for. I found it a year after you left. I didn't understand it then. It took me 9 more years to understand what it meant." He tosses the paper. It flutters like a dying bird and lands at the base of her gown. She bends, the movement stiff, and picks it up. Her eyes scan the summary. It's a due diligence report, standard for high net worth individuals. But the subjects investigated are deeply personal. Her father's bankruptcy, her mother's hospitalization, her own academic record, her juvenile shoplifting charge at 16, and a recommendation. Subject exhibits high ambition but carries significant emotional and financial baggage. Association presents reputational risk. The client listed is a numbered holding company, but in the margin, in faint pencil, someone had scribbled a note. "For MT's eyes only, handled discreetly. Determine if she's a viable long-term prospect." The wedding planner, a woman in a headset, finally snaps into crisis mode. We should pause the ceremony. Perhaps the guests could adjourn to the terrace for cocktails." But no one moves. This is better than champagne. Alina looks from the paper to Michael. Her voice is dangerously calm. "A viable long-term prospect. Is that what I was? A merger?" Michael shakes his head, a masterclass in wounded dignity. "Alina, every firm I partner with does basic diligence." It was procedural. It meant nothing. It meant everything. The shout comes from Alex. He's on his feet now. The calm is gone, replaced by a decade of simmering pain. You had her investigated, and then 2 weeks after this report was filed, she got the opportunity of a lifetime. A full scholarship to the Stanford Business School incubator. A spot that mysteriously opened up. A spot that required her to move immediately, to cut all ties, to disappear. Alina stumbles back a step. The memory hits her like a physical blow. The frantic phone call. The pressure to pack and leave in 48 hours. The advisor saying this was a now or never chance that her past could be a liability if she hesitated. She had called Alex. She had tried to explain. He was in the middle of a rehearsal for a make-or-break audition. He was stressed, distracted. He said, "If you go, that's it, our dream dies." She heard it as an ultimatum. He meant it as a plea. The fight was brutal, final. She chose the scholarship. She chose the future. She thought she was choosing survival. "You," she whispers, staring at Michael, who is now surrounded by a phalanx of grim-faced friends and advisors. "You arranged the scholarship." Michael doesn't deny it. He adjusts his cufflinks. "I invested in talent. I saw potential. I provided an opportunity. What you made of it was your own doing." The reframe is seismic. Alina's entire origin story, the brilliant escape from a difficult past, the self-made success, cracks down the middle. She wasn't discovered, she was acquired. She was a startup, and Michael Thorne was her angel investor. Alex pushes further. "The report said you were a reputational risk. Because of me, because of our life, because we were poor and messy and in love." He didn't just want to separate you from your past. He wanted to separate you from the one person who knew who you really were. Me, Alina's mind is racing, connecting dots she never knew existed. The anonymous donor who funded her first prototype. The venture capital firm that passed on her competitor but backed her. The way Michael entered her life, not as a suitor at first, but as a mentor, a guide. Slowly, carefully reshaping her narrative into something clean, powerful, and marketable. The CEO, the bride, the product. A product that is now malfunctioning live on stage. Her chief of staff, David, is at her elbow. "Alina, we have to contain this, the live feed, the guests, your stock. Vault Systems is down 3% in after-hours trading based on the headlines alone." Headlines. She looks out at the sea of phones, all held high, recording. The most private collapse broadcast in real time. She turns back to Alex. The anger in her is now mixed with a horrifying, dawning gratitude. He risked everything, his dignity, his peace, to hand her this terrible truth. "Why now?" she asks, her voice breaking. "Why today?" Alex's defiance fades. He looks tired. He looks like a man who has carried a secret for 10 years and finally set it down. "Because my daughter is in the car with a babysitter, and I realized I couldn't teach her to be brave if I spent my whole life being afraid of the past. And because you deserve to know what you were really saying, I do too." Just then, a new figure pushes through the crowd. An older woman in a severe suit, flanked by two men who look nothing like wedding guests. It's Margaret Thorne, Michael's mother, the matriarch. Her face is carved from ice. "This farce is over. Michael, we're leaving. Alina, if you have any sense of self-preservation, you will come with us and we will handle this damage in private." But Alina doesn't move. She is looking between the three poles of her life. The polished future represented by Margaret, the manufactured present embodied by a pale Michael, and the raw, discarded past sitting at a piano. She makes a decision. She turns to the officiant, who looks like he wants to vanish into the marble floor. "Please ask the guests to leave." The murmur turns into a roar of protest and confusion. Margaret Thorne steps forward. "Don't you dare." You walk out that door with him and everything unravels. The mergers, the board seat, everything. Alina ignores her. She looks at Alex. "You have 5 minutes. Start from the beginning. Tell me everything." As the stunned guests are ushered out, the grand ballroom empties, leaving only the wreckage of a wedding, two families at war, and a single father about to explain how he spent a decade piecing together the conspiracy that stole his life. And in the back of a town car, speeding away from the hotel, Michael Thorne isn't calling a publicist. He's calling a man with a very specific set of skills. The Rossi file, it's active, contain it, and the pianist, he's a loose end, tie him off. The stakes are no longer about a broken heart. They're about a buried truth, billions of dollars, and a man who just became a threat to one of the most powerful families in the country. Alex's 5 minutes have begun, and so has the clock on his safety. The silence in the emptied ballroom was heavier than the music had ever been. Only a handful of people remained. Alina, Alex, David, the chief of staff, and 4 hotel security guards posted at the doors. The chandeliers glowed over a battlefield of abandoned champagne flutes and confetti. Alina pointed to a small anteroom off the main floor. In there, now. Once inside, with the door closed, she turned on Alex. 5 minutes. Start talking. Alex didn't sit. He leaned against a wall, looking at the woman who was once his entire future. After you left, I was wrecked. I failed my audition. I sold the piano. I worked. For a year, I just existed. Then I was packing to move to a cheaper apartment, and I found the box you'd left in the closet. I'd never opened it. I thought it was just your old sheet music. He took a breath. It was the report. And underneath it, buried, was a sealed envelope, addressed to you. The postmark was 2 days after you left, from your father. Alina's hand went to her throat. My father, he never wrote. He could. He did, and someone intercepted it. It was in your box, which means whoever put the report there put the letter there too, as a message or a trophy. What did it say? Alex's eyes were full of pity. He was dying, Alina. The cancer was back. He'd gotten a settlement from his old job, a small one. $15,000. He sent it to you. A cashier's check. He wrote that he was proud of you, that he hoped this money could help you and your young man start your life. He said he was sorry for everything. The room spun for Alina. The scholarship to Stanford had been for $20,000. She had never questioned the miraculous timing. She had been so desperate to escape, she'd taken it as a sign. But it wasn't a sign. It was a trade. Her father's last act of love had been stolen and used as the down payment on her own reprogramming. The check, she whispered. It was cashed, Alex nodded. By a trust I couldn't trace until last year when I learned how to follow digital footprints. The trust was a shell, it fed into another shell, and eventually it led back to a law firm that does exclusive work for the Thorne family office. Alina felt the walls of her life, the beautiful, gilded walls she had built, crack and crumble. Her foundation was not grit, it was theft. Her independence was a carefully managed illusion. Michael hadn't just funded her future. He had hijacked her father's redemption. David, ever the pragmatist, spoke from the corner. Alina, this is catastrophic from a liability perspective. If this gets out, it's not just a scandal, it's fraud, embezzlement. The SEC could. Forget the SEC, Alina snapped, her CEO persona slamming back into place, forged now in fury. Where is the evidence, the letter, the check images? Safe, Alex said. Not here, I'm not a fool. I have copies in multiple places, with instructions to release them if anything happens to me or my daughter. That's when the first thud came from the main ballroom door. A heavy, insistent knock. Not hotel security, a voice called through. Ms. Vance, this is Captain Miller, corporate security for Thorne Capital. Mr. Thorne is concerned for your safety. We need to escort you. David peered through the door's small window. 3 men, suits, not hotel issue. They're armed. Alina's eyes met Alex's. The tying off of loose ends had already begun. Michael wasn't waiting to clean up the mess. He was coming to collect the assets and eliminate the variables. We're not safe here, Alex said. They'll take you and they'll disappear me. Alina made a decision in a split second. She turned to David. How loyal are you to me? Not to the company, to me. David didn't hesitate. I work for you, Alina, not the board. Good. Get us out the service entrance, now, and call my pilot. Tell him to file a flight plan for the cabin in Colorado, then delete the call. David nodded, pulling out his phone and moving to a service phone on the wall. Alina grabbed Alex's arm. You come with me, you're a target now, and you have the only copy of the truth I can trust. They moved through a maze of laundry carts and industrial kitchens, the sounds of the pursuing security team echoing behind them. Alina's phone buzzed incessantly. Michael, Margaret, board members. She silenced it. In the back alley, David had a hotel valet's personal car running. It's all I could get. Go. As they sped away, Alex finally asked the question burning in his mind. Why are you doing this? You could go back, make a deal, save your company. Alina stared out the window at the city lights, the empire she'd built. That company was built on a lie, on a stolen $15,000 and a murdered dream. I am not a product, not anymore. Her phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. It was a photo. taken from a long lens. It showed Chloe, Alex's daughter, playing in a park with her babysitter earlier that day. The message below was simple. A beautiful girl, so vulnerable, return what isn't yours and she stays beautiful. Alex's blood turned to ice. He fumbled for his own phone, calling the babysitter. It rang and rang. No answer. This was the "it gets worse" moment. The threat wasn't just to him or to Alina's fortune. It was to an innocent 8-year-old girl. Michael Thorne wasn't playing corporate games anymore. He was playing a much darker, more personal hand. "We're not going to the airport," Alex said, his voice terrifyingly calm. "We're going to get my daughter." Alina saw the look in his eyes, the same look he must have had when he played their song, a look of absolute, irreversible commitment. "Then we'll go together," she said, "and we end this." The car turned, heading away from the escape route and directly into the heart of the danger. The past was no longer something to uncover. It was a weapon, and they were now racing against time to use it before the future was taken from them forever. The confrontation in the wedding hall was just the opening move. The real war for their lives and for Chloe was just beginning. The babysitter's apartment was on the 3rd floor of a quiet brick building. Alex took the stairs 3 at a time, Alina struggling to keep up in her wedding gown, the train hastily bundled in her arms. He didn't knock, he used his key. The living room was dark, the television off. "Chloe Marie?" No answer. His heart slammed against his ribs. Then a small voice from the bedroom. "Daddy?" Chloe appeared in the doorway, clutching her stuffed rabbit, her eyes wide and confused. Behind her, the babysitter, Marie, was tied to a desk chair with duct tape, her mouth gagged, tears streaking her face. She was unharmed but terrified. A single sheet of paper was pinned to her chest with a knife. It read, "The next one won't be a warning, the evidence, by midnight." Alex ripped the tape from Marie's mouth. "Men, 2 of them. They were here 10 minutes ago. They took nothing. They just did this and left the note. They said to tell you they'd be watching." Alina was already at the window, peering through the blinds. "They're not here. They've made their point. They can take her anytime. They want you to know that." Alex hugged Chloe tightly, his mind racing. Midnight. He had 4 hours. The evidence was his only leverage, but handing it over wouldn't end this. People like Michael Thorne didn't leave loose ends. They'd take the evidence and then eliminate the witnesses, him, Alina, maybe even Chloe. They had to move, but running was futile. Alina turned from the window, her face set in a grim, determined expression. "We don't run, we attack." "With what?" Alex asked, untying Marie. "With what he fears most, public exposure, not a scandal, a confession." She pulled out her phone, the one buzzing with board members and lawyers. She called David. "David, I need you to do 2 things and you cannot question me. First, call a press conference for 11:30 tonight at the Vault Systems headquarters. Invite everyone. The tech press, the financial journals, the major networks. Second, pull every record, every email, every transfer related to the Vance Genesis Scholarship Fund and the Rossi Family Trust. I want it all on a drive in 30 minutes. David, to his credit, simply said, "It's done." Alina then looked at Alex. "You have the originals, the letter, the check image, the report. We're going to give him exactly what he wants. We're going to hand it over to him, live in front of the entire world." The plan was audacious, insane, to walk into the lion's den and force the lion to eat its own tail on camera. At 10:45, they stood outside the sleek glass tower of Vault Systems. A crowd of reporters and cameras was already gathering, confused but intrigued by the late-night summons. Inside, in her private boardroom on the top floor, Michael Thorne waited with his mother and 3 lawyers. He looked calm, victorious. He thought they were here to surrender. Alina walked in, still in her wedding dress, now stained and torn. Alex was beside her, a worn leather folder in his hand. Chloe was safe with David in a secure room downstairs. "You've come to your senses," Michael said, not bothering to stand. "Give me the folder, issue a statement about the pianist's mental collapse, and we can still salvage this." Alina didn't smile. "We're not here to give you the folder, Michael. We're here to give everyone the folder." She nodded to a screen on the wall. It lit up, showing the live feed from the lobby press conference. A company spokesperson was at the podium. Michael shot to his feet. "What is this?" "This," Alina said, her voice echoing in the room, "is your transparency moment." She took the folder from Alex. She didn't open it. She walked to the window overlooking the city. 10 years ago, you saw a brilliant, vulnerable young woman. You saw her not as a person, but as an investment. You stole $15,000 from her dying father to fabricate an opportunity. You surgically removed her past, her love, her art to create the perfect CEO, a product you could own. You didn't build me, Michael. You engineered me. One of the lawyers stood up. Ms. Vance, anything you say here can be used. Good, she interrupted, her gaze locking on Michael. Let it be used. She turned to the screen. The spokesperson stepped aside. Lena's face, lived from the boardroom camera, replaced him on the broadcast. She held up the old, faded letter. This is from my father, Vincent Rossi, dated October 14th, 10 years ago. She read the tender, heartbreaking words live on air. She held up the image of the cashed check. She displayed the Sentinel report with the handwritten viable prospect note. The room and the world watching fell into a stunned silence. Michael's face was ashen. His mother gripped the table, her knuckles white. The Vance Genesis Scholarship was funded with stolen money, Alina continued, her voice never wavering. My entire company, my entire public identity rests on a crime, and for that I take full responsibility. Effective immediately, I am resigning as CEO of Vault Systems. Every cent of the stolen funds, with interest, will be returned to my father's estate, which will be managed for charitable purposes, and I will be cooperating fully with all authorities. She then turned the camera toward Alex. This is Alex, the love you made me abandon, the man you tried to erase. He is not a loose end. He is the only reason I know the truth, and the only person who ever loved the real me. She dropped the folder on the table in front of Michael. You wanted the evidence, here it is. It's already public. Now, what are you going to do? In that moment, Michael Thorne wasn't a powerful venture capitalist. He was a boy caught in a lie, his entire legacy unraveling in real time. The live feed cut as his lawyers tackled him, shouting about legal recourse. But the dam had broken. Headlines exploded online in real time. VANCE empire built on stolen family money. THORNE Capital implicated in fraudulent scheme. The SEC would launch an investigation by morning. Michael's empire began to crumble before the clock struck midnight. The confrontation was over. The war was won not with secrecy, but with blinding, brutal light. In the quiet aftermath in a private office, Alex looked at Alina. What now? She looked out at the city, her city, which she no longer controlled. Now I start over, for real this time. She paused. And you played our song. I did. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard, she said, a tear finally escaping. I'm sorry I ever made you stop. He nodded, accepting the apology he'd waited a decade for. I have to get Chloe home. I know. They stood there, two people who had shared a past, survived a conspiracy, and had no clear future. The love was still there, but it was a different shape now, scarred, respectful, real. The surprising detail came 2 weeks later. A package arrived at Alex's small house. No return address. Inside was a simple, old-fashioned USB drive. On it was a single audio file. He plugged it in. It was a recording, a piano piece. Unfinished, hesitant, but beautiful. It was Alina playing, trying to remember the quiet promise. With it, a note in her now unflinching handwriting. I'm learning not to be a CEO, to be a person. Maybe someday we could finish it together. As friends, thank you for my life. Alex sat at the small keyboard he'd bought after the wedding, the first instrument he'd owned in 10 years. He played a few chords, listening to her recording. He didn't smile, but the weight in his chest finally, completely lifted. He had his daughter. He had his music back, and he had, against all odds, his truth. The quiet promise, it turned out, wasn't broken. It was just waiting for them to be brave enough to hear it again. The final piece of the puzzle had clicked into place, not with a grand romance, but with a simple, honest chord of understanding. The past was forgiven. The future was open. And for the first time in a very long time, the silence felt peaceful, not empty. So what is the true cost of a lie? For Michael Thorne, it was an empire. For Alina Vance, it was a decade of her own life. And for Alex, it was the silence of a piano. This story was never about a wedding. It was about the moment we choose to stop running from what's true, no matter how much it hurts. Alex's single act of courage to sit down and play a forgotten song wasn't revenge. It was a reckoning, a truth so loud it shattered a perfectly constructed world. In the months that followed, the fallout was severe but clean. Alina cooperated with authorities, returning every cent of the stolen funds. She faced no criminal charges, but her resignation was permanent. Vault Systems survived under new leadership, but the Vance era was over. She moved to a smaller city, started a non-profit teaching coding to girls from underserved communities. She calls it the Rossi Foundation, and she's taking piano lessons. Michael Thorne and his mother are facing multiple federal investigations for fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction. Their social capital evaporated overnight. The wedding that didn't happen became the scandal that defined their legacy. As for Alex, he still drives for the catering company, but on weekends he teaches piano to kids in his living room. His daughter Chloe is his first and best student. She knows the whole story now. She knows her dad was brave. The surprising footnote. That unfinished duet. Once a month, Alex and Alina meet on a video call. They don't talk about the past. They work on the music. They're slowly, carefully finishing The Quiet Promise together, not as lovers, but as two people who helped each other reclaim their authentic selves. It's a different kind of love, deeper perhaps for having survived the fire. The real lesson here isn't about grand romantic gestures. It's about the quiet integrity of a single father who refused to let a lie be the last word. It's about a powerful woman who chose truth over treasure. Their courage was a mirror. And the question it leaves us with is simple. What quiet promise have you been too afraid to keep? What truth are you hiding from because the cost of acknowledging it seems too high? Sometimes, the most heroic thing you can do is not fight a battle, but simply stop living a fiction. Press play on your own truth. The world might just be waiting to hear it. Subscribe if you believe that some silences are meant to be broken.